Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023. My name is Emma Vigelinden for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, will be with us to talk about the electoral failures of the right-wing school board candidates. And later, AMQuickie's own Jacob Silverman will be here to explain what's really happening with OpenAI. Meanwhile, Israel announces a 4-day pause in its relentless bombardment of Gaza in exchange for 50 women and children hostages. 150 Palestinian prisoners, many of them teenagers jailed for throwing rocks, are said to be released as well. The pause means more dead can be counted, and much to the chagrin of Netanyahu and reportedly the Biden administration, journalists can document it. The death toll in Gaza has topped 14,000. Politico reports that the White House has been giving Israel geolocation data for humanitarian groups. But golly gee, Israel's striking them anyway. It's almost like they want to. Ro Khanna becomes the 43rd member of Congress to call for a ceasefire. Echoes of the Red Scare, Susan Sarandon dropped by a major talent agency over her pro-Palestine advocacy. And a lesser-known actress, Melissa Barrera, fired from Scream 7 for calling Israel's bombardment a genocide, which, by the way, scholars are also calling it.
For sharing a Jewish Currents article making that argument.
Here in New York, an ex-Obama foreign policy advisor was caught berating a halal vendor with violent Islamophobic rhetoric. Abortion rights groups want to replicate success in Ohio. They're trying to get the right to an abortion on the ballot in 9 other states. This comes as a post-Dobbs data analysis shows birth rate increases in every state with an abortion ban. An estimated 1/4 of women who would have gotten abortions were forced to give birth. The newly liberal Wisconsin Supreme Court appears poised to strike down the GOP gerrymandered maps. Great news. Less great news. A circuit judge has overruled the will of the Oregon people, overturning the gun safety ballot measure approved last year. Faculty at 23 California State University campuses are preparing to strike in a week or two. And lastly, don't call it a comeback. Thirsty-ass Andrew Cuomo is leaking to the press that he may run for mayor. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. Sam is out. He mentioned it yesterday. He's dealing with a cat situation, vet appointment ahead of the holiday. So we'll be with you with our final live show of the week. But on Friday, we will have 3 best of interviews. One done by me, one done by Sam, and one by Matt and David with Left Reckoning. So tune into that because those are some of, the ones that we want to highlight. And I can speak to my interview with Anthony Lowenstein about Israel's military-industrial complex, essentially. Very relevant right now. So,
yeah, I haven't read that book, but I do plan to over this break.
Oh, just to spice things up.
Exactly, just to in between all the other Israel books that I've been
Yeah. Just, different flavors. So we started a little early today because we're going to be speaking to Randi Weingarten, who is limited in her time. So let's get right into it here. A tale of two politicos. That's how I'm going to frame this opening segment. In the reporting about the pause that has been agreed upon, at least we hope, by Israel, the United States, and by Hamas through their negotiators in Qatar. And there were two Politico pieces that came out yesterday, or today, I guess, that told some different stories about the internal politics of these negotiations as it relates to the Biden administration. And we should say the negotiations and the agreement is basically that there will be a 4-day pause in the indiscriminate carpet bombing of Gaza, and humanitarian aid can get in. There will hopefully, if this holds, be 50 women and children hostages released by Hamas and 150 Palestinian prisoners of a 300-person list that was released by Israel will also, if this again goes through, be released as well. And those prisoners, there are thousands of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails, many of them without charge and many of them indefinitely. The list that was released of the 300 are mostly teenagers and other who have been imprisoned for throwing rocks and other misdemeanors. So they don't get much attention in this, but the fact of the matter is that Israel has been indefinitely holding Palestinians.
They should have got a lot of attention because actually they
years.
could have been used to as leverage to get the hostages back immediately without bombing Gaza. But that was something that we all, the American government and Israel, wanted to do. So now here we are after so long.
And this Politico piece by Aaron Banco and Nahal Tuzi paints a much less rosy picture than the other representation here of these negotiations. But I'll start with the way that I think many pro-Israel people in the Biden administration want it framed. Alexander Ward, Adam Cancran, Jonathan Lemire had a piece saying that the Biden administration officials see proof their strategy is working in hostage deal. So for the Israel hardliners in the administration, they feel like we're going on the right track here, which is insane to me. Some Biden administration officials quietly say the hostage exchange agreement is the clearest signal, yet its strategy towards the Israel-Hamas war is working. Under the breakthrough deal, 50 women and children will be released by Hamas in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners. I mentioned it. And then the 4 to 5 day pause will allow the safe transfer and ease the delivery of life-saving aid to suffering Palestinians in Gaza. Again, that doesn't mean that the bombing will end after that pause, and it is still a green light to ethnically cleanse, at the very least, North Gaza, because then the bombing will continue. After there's humanitarian aid and lives saved, these people will not be able to return to their homes ever again. And I do believe that Israel will be moving to annex the entire Gaza Strip as these operations continue. 3 U.S. administration officials said there's no explicit victory lap to take as around 200 hostages will stay behind in Hamas's grasp. And it would be uncouth to celebrate any win after Hamas killed 1,200 people on October 7th, leading to Israel to forcefully respond with a military campaign that the Hamas-led health ministries claim killed more than 1,300 people. Again, these are bureaucrats in Palestine who do this regularly, and the United Nations back these numbers, so I can't stand when they frame it like that. But all suggested President Joe Biden shouldn't shy away from what the policy has accomplished to date. You mean genocide? It's vindication, said one of the officials earlier Tuesday before the deal was finalized, but there's more to do. And this is the money quote that's later on in the piece. The Biden administration insists that Israel has an obligation to defend itself, but should minimize civilian harm in the process. Over recent weeks, the U.S. worked to get 100 aid trucks a day into Gaza from Egypt and is in touch with humanitarian groups on how to further alleviate the suffering of Palestinians in the enclave. You know what would alleviate the suffering is if the bombing would stop permanently.
This is outrageous.
This is the quote here. But the administration remains wary about Netanyahu's endgame and seeming lack of a plan for what to do once Hamas is defeated.
They want to remain naive.
Yep. There was no sense that the pause would turn into a lengthier ceasefire, a senior administration official said, and there was some concern in the administration about an unintended consequence of the pause, that it would allow journalists broader access to Gaza and the opportunity to further illuminate the devastation there and turn public opinion on Israel.
Remember that Shireen Abu Akleh, according to the IDF spokesperson, was armed with a camera.
That is at least some members of the Biden administration speaking to Politico, giving a thumbs up to...
They should be speaking to The Hague.
Israel's policy of trying to create a blackout in Gaza so war crimes can go undocumented. And then this was the other piece in Politico. And I keep returning to that because when you see things in Politico and you hear administration officials speak to that paper in particular, understand that it's more than, even other more like papers of record like the Washington Post and the New York Times, direct efforts to influence people, get their agenda out there in ways that can sometimes verge on gossipy and a little bit irresponsible sometimes, I think. And you can see that there's clearly a war in the media being waged. We know this also because there are many State Department officials who have made their dissent clear via dissent cables, and they're discussed with this. That first piece, that's not the camp that they're in. But this is really important as well to get out there. The Biden administration has been providing Israel with the location of humanitarian groups in Gaza for weeks to prevent strikes against their facilities. But Israel has continued to hit such sites. The information included GPS coordinates of a number of medical facilities and information on movements of aid groups in Gaza to the Israeli government for at least a month, according to three people familiar with the communications. All were granted anonymity because they feared speaking publicly would make it more difficult for aid groups to operate in Gaza. Still, Israel has launched operations against Hamas in or near aid sites, including hospitals, leading to the destruction of buildings and the blocking of fuel and other critical supplies. Among the sites provided to the Israeli government are medical facilities, including Al-Shifa Hospital, parts of which Israeli forces took over on November 15th. So this is...
It should not be presumed to be accidental.
Yes.
Israel doesn't get that. These are...
No, this is explicitly saying it's not.
Right.
The United States is providing them with GPS data, as if that was even necessary. As if Israeli intelligence isn't some of the most well-funded and robust in the world, and they don't have a complete understanding of the geography and the locations of certain groups in Gaza.
They export spy technology across the world. Who do you think they test that stuff out on?
That's what you're going to hear on Friday if you listen to the Anthony Lowenstein interview, the Palestine Laboratory. That's literally what that's about. So, but that's just proof that the Biden administration is telling them, these are hospitals, these are humanitarian organizations, and they're bombing them anyway. And according to that Politico piece, they've been doing it for weeks. So these are the warring factions within the Biden administration right now. And, this is a glimmer of hope. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, obviously, and the fact that there is going to be some pause in the bombing, at least if this holds, is a good thing. But the reality of the continued ethnic cleansing is the one that we have to keep our eye on.
And the continued granting of the premise that they're fighting terror and not just trying to displace people.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's not, I couldn't even read Bernie's, honestly, piece about security, because this is not about security.
It's absolutely not. It's about using an attack in Israel as an excuse for what they've been trying to do in slow motion for a long period of time. It's an acceleration.
Nakba.
Yeah. Nakba 2.0. It won't be long before Palestinians are completely cleansed from the Gaza Strip, and then
well, no, they can't be. Ultimately, you see, these strategies for moving them. Now, Gaza people have to stay. But Gaza has to be rebuilt. The world owes it to Gaza.
I agree, but I
know what Israel wants. Absolutely, yeah.
And this pause doesn't address that acceleration.
No, it's just taking the heat down.
Yeah.
To about mid.
All right, folks. Some words from our sponsors, and then we will be speaking to Randi Weingarten. You're looking for some gifts this holiday season? Aura frames is the way to go. The number one thing your parents want to do is to call them, hang out with them. But the number two thing, I would say, is to give them a thoughtful gift. This holiday season, you can give them a call, of course, and give them an Aura digital picture frame, so you'll have another amazing way to stay in touch. I can just speak from personal experience here. When you give these kinds of gifts where it involves pictures and memories and sentimentality, it just goes such a long way over, getting them socks or a button-down shirt or something like that. This is the kind of thing that your parents, your relatives are really going to love, especially if you don't live close to them and they miss you. Aura Frames was named the, quote, best digital photo frame by Wirecutter and Fast Company. They said this simple, stylish digital picture frame can replace social media in your life. So the next time you need to call your parents, you can also send them a new pic of you from that trip that you're telling them about right from your phone. So it links up to your phone, these picture frames, and it's not a complicated digital frame. Sometimes I know people have difficulty working those. This one you can do literally from your phone. From now through Black Friday and Cyber Monday, Aura is having their best deal of the year. Listeners can save $40 on their best-selling Carver mat frame by visiting auraframes.com/majority. That's AURA frames.com/majority. Use promo code majority to get $40 off their best-selling frames. Again, that's Aura, AURA frames.com/majority. Use promo code majority to get $40 off their best-selling frames. Terms and conditions apply. Now, I am a notorious cashew lover. I have them literally right here from nuts.com. Although, again, when I was out sick, Sam ate basically all of them. So it kind of just speaks to how good they are. He's going to have to get me back with some more product from nuts.com because they've got everything. Cashews, almonds, pecans, pistachios, dried mango, crystallized ginger, dates, jelly beans, jawbreakers. Oh my God, I used to love those jawbreakers. Root beer barrels. The variety is vast at nuts.com. Thank you, nuts.com.
Nuts.com is kind of a misnomer. It's way more than...
It's more. It's nuts and
candies
some.
And stuff like that.
Please join me in thanking nuts.com for supporting the Majority Report. Right now, when you go to nuts.com/majority, new customers get a free gift with purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more. Nuts.com is your one-stop shop for freshly roasted nuts, dried fruits, sweets, pantry staples like specialty flours, and more. Their wide selection means there is something for everyone. At Nuts.com, quality is top priority. They roast their nuts and pop their corn the same day it ships, so they reach you deliciously fresh. Satisfaction is guaranteed. I mean, I literally have these right on my desk. This is my go-to for whenever I need a snack. And I'm trying to expand to some of those other options there, like those dried fruits and things like that. That sounds very, very good. Nuts.com offers plenty of gluten-free options, organic choices, and other diet-friendly products. Whether you are looking for something sweet, savory, or need to stock up on everyday cooking essentials, you're bound to find something to try. Shop a la carte at any time or opt into hassle-free auto deliveries so you never run out of your favorite items. And if you're already stocked up at home, they also sell directly to businesses so you can keep your commissary stocked for your employees. Right now, Nuts.com is offering new customers a free gift with purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more at Nuts.com/majority. So go check out all of the delicious options at Nuts.com/majority. You'll receive a free gift and free shipping when you spend $29 or more. Nuts.com/majority. And lastly, who are some brilliant duos that made a leap forward? Socrates and Plato, Watson and Crick, hypothesis and conclusion. Well, what about the perfect duo when it comes to growing your business? That's you and Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, and all the way to did we just hit 500,000 orders stage? Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify has got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. I think it's because they make it so easy. and sell more with less effort thanks to Spotify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Wow. And Shopify, the global force behind Allbirds and Rothy's and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way, because businesses that grow with Shopify. Shopify is great for the Majority Report, and our merch and all the stuff that we want to get out there. By the way, new merch for us. You should check it out, and you should check out Shopify.
When we do live show stuff, we use the Shopify app, and it is actually we had a live show once for TMBS, and I'm like, we didn't do any preparation for it beforehand. Michael said to me about 2 hours beforehand, "Hey, download this app," and somehow it got working by the end of the show, and we were able to take.
There we go. It makes it even easy for people who are not that technologically sound. Sign up for a $1 per month period at shopify.com/majority, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/majority now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/majority. All right, quick break, and when we come back, we'll be with Randi Weingarten. We are back, and we are joined now by Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO. Randi, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know your time is limited, but really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure and my honor.
Well, we kind of, get to do a little bit of dunking on the right wing, which is pretty fun, even in our short conversation here, because on our show, we've been expressing concerns about these right-wing groups with robust financial backing, overwhelming these school board elections, driving turnout for Republicans. That seemed to be at least my assessment of what they were trying to do. But mostly it's about thwarting public education. But the early numbers seem to indicate that the groups like Moms for Liberty and the 1776 Project actually failed pretty miserably. So what's your take on some of the results that we've seen in these groups' efforts?
Parents want their kids to get a decent education. They want public schools to work, and they're tired of people pitting and dividing educators and themselves and hurting kids. So when you start with, the first thing you start with is let's forbid this, or let's ban that, or let's, require gobs and gobs and gobs of paperwork, or let's, call our teachers names. None of that is about teaching and learning. And it's particularly not about teaching and learning during the period right after COVID, when you have to help kids develop resilience and a sense of relationships again, and community and connection. And you want kids to come back to school and enjoy school in a safe and welcoming environment and having well-rounded education. So the things that we're trying to do for schooling, these groups like Moms for Liberty, that Southern Poverty Law Center calls an extremist or a hate group, 1776 Project, they're all about the extreme and the divide, when we have to be about the welcoming and safe environment and well-rounded education. So I think what essentially happened was groups around the country, small mom, dad groups, teachers with their unions, they basically got together with candidates that said, oh, no, we want to focus on basics. We want to focus on education, getting our kids to want to be back in schools, making sure that our kids are safe and welcome and having a great time in school and having a well-rounded education. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers are pretty staggering that I saw that your union, the American Federation of Teachers, put out, essentially saying that Moms for Liberty, the 1776 Project, lost around 70% of their endorsed races. What's your view of that, I guess, from 30,000 feet, of why those losses, happened, I guess, from the dynamic of like how much people value their public education?
So they just, again, it's a matter of the people on the ground, because school board races are not won from 37 feet above. They're won on the ground with candidates who either believe in public education or don't believe in public education. And Moms for Liberty, they may have a snazzy title, and they have lots and lots of money from gazillionaires. And they have a lot of amplification on extremist TV and radio, and, they tell a lot of lies. But they're not the neighbor who's running for school board, who you see in the grocery store, who cares about our kids in public schools. So when you add all of it up, we looked at, and we're involved in about 250 races across the country. There's 30,000 school board races. But when you look at places where these extremist groups had won seats beforehand, like Wichita, like Central Bucks, like Loudoun County, in Virginia, like lots of places in Minnesota, or were running on that mantle, 8 out of 10 places, the pro-public education folks won. So I think it's really about Who cares about kids and their education versus who's exploiting anxiety and creating more division? And I think the through line became just look at the censoring of history and the issues around book banning. For every parent that may want a book banned, there are many parents that say, wait a second, that's my decision. Don't take that decision out of my hands by banning a book, by stopping it from being in the library. You're taking it out of my hands. So I think it's just a matter of once we understood what was going on, that this was a political gimmick and this was trying to create more division and chaos, people said, no, I want to really focus on helping kids, not on exploiting anxiety. And that's why I think we won.
You're talking really about the real parental rights, right?
Correct.
As opposed to the cynical cries for parental rights that you hear from these groups. And often that's just a way to go after teachers one by one and make them feel like they're walking some sort of tightrope politically.
Exactly. Think about it this way.
Yeah.
60% of the book banning in Florida is done by 11 people.
Right.
Remember that big issue around Amanda Gorman's poem in Miami-Dade. The person who requested the ban hadn't even read the poem. It's a political gimmick to try to get books out of schools. And so people, parents have to be involved in schools. Teachers have to be involved in schools. Many times, neither has their voices heard enough. But there should be those processes. That's why you have an elected school board and you have school board meetings. And there are processes by which if people don't feel like they have a voice, then they go and they engage in that voice either at a school level or at a school board level and use those processes. Now, sometimes those processes don't work effectively. We complain about them a lot. But that's really different than saying there should be a ban or you shouldn't teach slavery. And that's what I think the difference was. Parents said, wait a second, this is not what I bargained for. This is not what I want for my kids. I want my kids to have a well-rounded education.
Lastly, before I let you go, with all of this kind of stewing with luckily there have been these losses, but the kind of precarity of these well-funded right-wing campaigns to go after school boards and with post-COVID, how are teachers doing generally? The 1.7 plus million teachers that are in your union?
So let me say two things. Number one, teachers want to teach and kids want to learn. Number two, teachers really want to have the ability to teach to what kids need. So they need the resources. They need to be able to have some autonomy. And what we're focused on are things like, how do we make schools fun and meaningful for kids? Experiential learning instead of memorization. In an age of AI, you need that application and critical thinking anyway. In preparing kids for the future, you need that anyway. So let's actually do the things we know will help kids soar, like experiential learning, career tech ed, having debates in school, having lots of extracurricular activities. So that's number one. Number two, teachers need help and support. Lots of kids still haven't recovered from COVID, from the divisiveness, from all of this. So we need to wrap services around schools to make sure kids and families have the services that they need. And why do I start with what kids need? Is because teachers will feel a lot better if we can support kids' needs. Parents really rely on teachers. We know that. They rely on public schools. 90% of parents send their kids to public schools. We need the help and the support as opposed to this constant anger fest and division that the extremists seem to want to do. And so teachers will feel a lot better if we can get teachers paid, a little bit more. They need to have a living wage. So we need to pay them more, but they really, really need the deep respect and the support. They want to teach. They want kids to learn. That's who teachers are.
Teachers are heroes. Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks, quick break. And when we come back, we'll be with Jacob Silverman. We are back, and we are joined by, once again, friend of the show, Jacob Silverman, co-author of Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud, host of the Naked Emperor podcast, and writer at places like The Nation and our very own AMQuickie, which you should be checking out if you haven't already. Jacob, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
I've been curious about this OpenAI story, and I was trying to read, Wall Street Journal articles, CNBC. I mean, I was not really able to make heads or tails of it until I read your piece in The Nation on this front. So there's been some drama with this company, OpenAI, over the past week. And let's just get our viewers up to speed, or listeners here, with the most basic questions to start. What is OpenAI and who is Sam Altman?
Sure. There are maybe a half dozen major AI startups. Of course, there are a lot of others, but ones that are valued in the tens of billions of dollars. And OpenAI is the biggest and the most important. And Sam Altman is the CEO and co-founder of OpenAI. He is very popular in Silicon Valley. I think there's actually an interesting kind of social or networking aspect here. He used to be the head of something called Y Combinator, which is the most desired startup incubator in Silicon Valley. If you have a new company, you want to get into Y Combinator to get access to money and connections and things like that. So Sam Altman basically knows every money person in Silicon Valley, and a lot of them like him. He's not necessarily a scientist. He's more of a manager and a money guy. And he was summarily fired from OpenAI, which is valued at more than $80 billion, on Friday. It was just a really sudden kind of firing, where this kind of situation where people thought everything was going well. This is the hottest startup basically in the world. They have a lot of money from Microsoft, and Microsoft definitely plays a role here. And he was suddenly fired. There's a huge uproar, especially from all of his allies in the tech industry and most of OpenAI's employees. It seemed like maybe he would come back, then maybe he was going to go to Microsoft, then maybe the whole company was going to follow him to Microsoft. And now he's back again, it seems, and he's once again CEO of OpenAI, but some of his rivals apparently have been forced to leave.
This is a really interesting dynamic here because the structure of OpenAI is different than, I would say, a standard startup, right? And it appears like the employees of OpenAI were really aligned with Altman. The investors, like Microsoft, which has invested $13 billion into OpenAI, were quite aligned with Altman as well, and they wanted him to stick around. But the board is the one that forced Altman out in this instance. Jacob, what makes that kind of significant, and why, how is this dynamic pretty drastically different from other Silicon Valley companies of its type?
It's a strange company. You might see this flowchart going around online where OpenAI is technically in some ways a nonprofit. There is sort of a for-profit entity at the heart of this that is developing a lot of what we think of as ChatGPT and the OpenAI products. They are actually capped at how much money they can make or how much profit they can make. That's what Microsoft is investing in, and that's the real heart of the company. But then you have these affiliate or sort of overseeing nonprofit elements. And that is where the real clash seemed to be occurring last week and over the weekend, which is that there are some people who are more committed to the nonprofit interests of OpenAI because they think this is a way to develop this technology, but also to contain it. Because we have to acknowledge that there is an almost religious faith at OpenAI and in some parts of the AI world that they are inventing something that's going to be potentially smarter than a human being, artificial general intelligence, as they call it. This is going to change the world. And if they're not careful, it could destroy the world. Pardon me. So that nonprofit kind of wrapper, which has a lot of legal ramifications, is supposed to ensure that OpenAI pursues all this kind of fundamental research, but and creates a nuclear bomb, but doesn't set it off, basically. That's the kind of knife edge dynamic we're really working with here. And from what we understand, I mean, still we're very heavy on gossip, but light on reporting with this story.
Yes.
But which I still have some questions about, like what might have actually happened there. But it seems like Altman and some of his allies, which, as you said, are definitely everyone with the money, really want to push forward. They want to see how far they can take this stuff, keep innovating with ChatGPT, keep rolling out new products to customers. And they hope that one day they will kind of create God in a box, as some people sometimes say. There are other people at OpenAI who seem just as much committed to kind of, frankly, the religious or cultish vision of AGI and AI. And they really think they're working on the most important thing in the world. There's nothing more important than this, not climate change, not anything. But they want to pursue it kind of a different way with a little more caution, perhaps. And as you said, I think what we found really here at the end of this coup and then counter coup is that the people with the money got their way. And I think Microsoft emerged also a little more powerful and a little more controlling of what OpenAI is going to be, as they would want it to be, because Microsoft has committed $13 billion to OpenAI. One last note I think we should say is that these kinds of companies, while some of them aspire towards more altruistic or nonprofit aims, it's incredibly expensive to run a company like this. I mean, Microsoft committed $13 billion because you need almost unlimited amounts of compute, as they call it, basically data center time, GPUs, the actual data, the talent who you pay so much for, Sam Altman and his employees. So it's very hard to actually do this in a committed nonprofit way. Eventually, you're going to need one of these trillion-dollar companies like Microsoft to start paying the bills.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you've sent me a joke over IM. Say it on air.
Oh, I said the true test of AI is, can it make people use Bing search?
Right. Then it will be all powerful like God.
Very much so.
But so it's really interesting too how Microsoft is kind of continuing the vision of its founder in making sure that certain things that are more open sourced are privatized and enclosed by a company like Microsoft. But just putting that to the side for 1 second, I want to return to the board and their concerns. What their concerns reportedly are, because leftists, I think, are concerned that AI is going to supplant much of the labor force, or at least be used as an excuse to lay off many, many people who have honed certain skills that will be deemed redundant by a capitalist class, where they can cost save and implement AI instead. That's definitely my primary concern. My sense is that that is not the concern of the board of OpenAI.
Yeah, I think that the concern, or the level of concern at which they're operating, is really, are we going to create God, and is God going to kill us all? You know, it's really this very far-flung, prophetic, almost eschatological end-of-world vision that they're debating and worried about. Some of this stuff does come out of the world of effective altruism, the kind of Sam Bankman-Fried FTX philosophy.
Oh, good.
Which we don't need to revisit, but even just those associations should say a lot. But as I mentioned in my Nation article, I think the problems with AI are much more immediate, and some of them are here right now. We don't really need to get off on a tangent, but there are also different ways to define what AI is. But I would just say quickly, we already have autonomous systems or automated systems that are telling humans what to do, whether you're in an Amazon factory or you work at a call center. There are already ways in which this stuff is being folded into everyday processes. If you actually call a call center or calls customer support somewhere, there might be an automated system that actually analyzes your voice to determine how much of a problem you're going to be and what level of service you should get. Like they analyze how annoyed you sound. So there are all these little ways. I mean, and we could talk about credit scores, or there are so many ways in which automated systems, some of which may fall under the mantle of AI, are being integrated into our lives, the economy, consumer life, the military, of course. And I think the more immediate questions are, what are we doing with these systems right now, and how are they being foisted upon people, especially lower income people and gig workers and folks like that? That's really the problem, is that AI is not becomes all powerful. It's that it's deemed good enough by some of these big corporate players to then be folded into their systems, because they can say, oh, it's good enough, we'll save some money. And then the problems, of course, trickle down to labor and to consumers.
Yeah, and so how did Altman return then, right? I mean, so they were concerned he was moving too quickly. There are some allusions, as you write in your piece, to maybe him being a bit duplicitous and hiding certain things from the board because he's much more focused on the profit motive that's, I'm sure, like being pushed by Microsoft, which he's very close with, their chief primary investor here, or biggest investor, right? Yeah. So how did they get turned around? Was it just the force of the money?
It may be that. I mean, I think some of this will become clear in the coming days, but when you have those sort of this esoteric philosophical kind of argument versus, hey, we're the leaders of this technology, and if we keep pushing, we can do some really amazing things and make more money. The latter is a lot more clear, I think, justification to folks in Silicon Valley. I think what clearly mattered a lot was that the employees at OpenAI seemed to like Sam Altman and trust him and want to follow him. And they all basically had blank check jobs waiting for them, either at Microsoft or Salesforce, and other companies started emerging saying, we'll hire you too. So it mattered a lot that Sam Altman seems to be synonymous with OpenAI. But I think what you're saying about the board is important and has, in a lot of ways, been overlooked. I mean, some people are talking about this, but it's not a small matter for a board, even if they're motivated by perhaps principles we don't understand, to fire their CEO and to fire a very popular CEO. They released statements saying that Sam, quote, wasn't candid with them. And there was another statement later when they stood by their decision. Of course, the board has now been mostly replaced, except for one person. But that indicates to me that something happened. It doesn't mean it's the most the worst scandal you've ever heard, but some kind of malfeasance or breaking of rules or procedures. There was some reporting that Sam Altman was traveling a lot in the Middle East and other places, trying to raise money from sovereign wealth funds, I assume in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and from Masayoshi Son, the head of SoftBank, who's known for giving out billions of dollars to people like Adam Neumann and WeWork. And supposedly, Sam Altman had interest both in making some kind of AI piece of hardware with Johnny Ive, the legendary former Apple designer. We never really learned what that was. And then his other intended business was to create a chip startup that would compete with NVIDIA and some of the other companies making GPUs and other chips for AI. Now, just real quick, I actually think that is really crazy and kind of reckless, because you don't just create a new chip company that's going to challenge the biggest chip company in the world, arguably, which is NVIDIA, which is doing unbelievably well and is essential to the AI industry. This takes tens of billions of dollars in startup capital. You need brilliant scientists who can actually innovate on this stuff. You need production capacity. You need like 10 years to even get stuff to built and then to customers. So what I think it says, and that is something that I think a board might be concerned about. Hey, you're talking about launching this colossal startup that would compete, that doesn't seem to have a good chance and not really focused here at home. That, to me at least, if I were a board member, which I'm far from it, would raise a lot of questions like, why are you doing this kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, it also just appears to be a continuation of and you say this, I think, in the piece as well, the move fast and break things ideology of Silicon Valley, which is like, we are gonna gobble up as much capital, as much investment as humanly possible. We're gonna skirt as many regulations as we can. We're gonna implement our new technology. And then the law, the structures, they'll fall in place afterwards. But first, we've just got to get to this level of prominence. And I think that's also fascinating to me in terms of, like, was he seeking out investment for that project instead of really focusing in on OpenAI? I mean, we don't know at this point, but what is the need for more investment in something like OpenAI? My guess would be the more valuable use of someone's time in that way would be to start capturing information for AI to learn from, right? Like, there's going to be issues with copyright and with intellectual property that is being completely cast aside due to the move fast and break things philosophy. Yes. What is the status of that in this OpenAI story?
Yeah, I think there's a feeling that perhaps some of the bills will come due later. As you said, the move fast and break things ethos, which was popularized by Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, but we certainly saw it with Uber or Amazon. Basically, Theranos breaking or ignoring laws or regulations, or conveniently sidestepping them, and then kind of either not asking for forgiveness or just reaching some kind of settlement later. So one of those things might be lawsuits over the unbelievable amounts of data, a lot of also copyright information that have gone into OpenAI's models and other companies' models, because they need just these incredible, huge corpuses of data, like everything that's ever been written in the history of humanity, in order to train this stuff. And they will make their own arguments for why they should have some right to this as just training data, but they are using a form of other people's labor or work products. So I think that kind of thing could lead to huge lawsuits later. But really, a lot of it also does come back to just lavishing unbelievable amounts of money on the talent, and then on the hardware and the data centers and the compute time. I mean, one of the things that Microsoft did to sort of both become an investor in OpenAI and to perhaps right the ship and get Sam Altman back in there was they offer a lot of computation resources because it's needed. So, and that's why you only have a few of these big AI companies likely to move forward. And that, again, gets us back to this fundamental contradiction. Like, how can you have this sort of be a public serving or altruistic or even nonprofit kind of entity when it's clearly just this unbelievable consumer of capital and resources?
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like the vision, the almost religious vision that you describe from the employees and even from the board or whatever is meant to paper over those very facts there. And it's a lot easier to operate in an unethical way when you think that you're creating, like, God via computing. And that's
what could be a higher goal than that?
Yeah.
Jacob, do you have any sense of, is the AI bubble softening? Is the bullishness disappearing? Because I think people do. There was all this talk like a year ago about how this is going to be exponentially improving. So you think it's good now? Well, actually, a year from now, it's just going to be even better. But you actually look at what it takes to even produce what it's producing now, which is a tremendous amount of computing. What's your sense of the bullishness for AI?
I think certainly the people with the money, VCs and sovereign wealth funds, and some of these companies are still very excited. But I think outside analysts and even just some everyday observers, like, I'm curious how many people actually use AI in their lives, like as a productivity tool. We hear about sometimes. Frankly, I know some people in finance who use different versions of kind of boutique LLMs, those are the large language models, to look at stuff. Or I've talked to programmers who you can have OpenAI or other AI programs just create some kind of generic code for you, and you still have to proofread it. But given how the lack of exponential improvement and the huge amount of hallucinations, as they call them, the just false information, I don't really see how people can rely on this stuff as a work or productivity tool. So the initial wave of hype was so huge, and they might cite user numbers, but I also wonder how many of those people are actually using it as anything more than an idle entertainment that they log into once in a while or make a funny meme out of.
Yeah.
And so while I would say that AI probably has more use cases than crypto, our last form of mega tech hype, and I see why some of the enthusiasm is there, there's still a point soon, I think, where they're going to have to follow through on some of these utopian promises, or at least show that like this stuff has an obvious and appealing use case that can be spread widely and that can scale in the way that they imagine. Right now, I think there's a lot of excitement sort of about the novelty of the technology, but still not really that fundamental implementation without the hallucinations.
Lastly, Jacob, before we let you go, can't have you on the show without asking about your thoughts about the Binance CEO. Basically, what 50 is it 50 million or 50 billion that he has to pay? Or I don't have the exact article in front of me, but he got convicted of those money laundering. So what's going on there?
CZ, also known as Changpeng Zhao, but most people call him CZ, the co-founder and CEO of Binance. I mean, this was the white whale of crypto, basically. For people who follow, this is as big as SBF being arrested. In some ways, it's less dramatic. We knew that his company, Binance, had been negotiating with U.S. law enforcement and regulators for a while. The company is going to pay a fine of more than $4 billion. I think his personal fine is about $50 million. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a lot more than that squirreled away somewhere. He came to the U.S. He came to federal court in Seattle. I never thought I'd see him come to the U.S., frankly, because of the criminal cloud hanging over him. But he came to court. He pleaded guilty. And really, it's to make all this go away. There are a lot of problems if you try to pursue this to its ultimate conclusion. Binance is mostly overseas. CZ is a Canadian citizen with Chinese ties. It's just a complicated situation. But this is the biggest crypto exchange in the world. And it's been kneecapped, basically, to put it bluntly. I don't think it'll collapse overnight, but their ability to do business anywhere near the U.S. or with dollars is going to be severely hampered. So CZ might have a short prison term. Some people might think he got off a little lightly, but this is a fundamental change for Binance and for the enforcement against crypto. It's just not going to look the same after this.
All right, can we anticipate some more writing from you or some episodes of Naked Emperor podcast where people can hear more about this?
I hope so. I can't let go of these guys. I love these characters, and there are other people like Justin Sun or the Tether guys, or maybe something on CZ, or there's going to be Sam Bankman-Fried another trial in March, probably over this bribery charge. So I can't get away from it.
His parents, too?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think besides them getting sued, if you look at the lawsuit against them from FTX, there is stuff in there that I think criminal investigators are looking at. So this is far from over.
Well, Jacob Silverman, if you want to read his book, co-authored with Ben McKenzie, Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud, you definitely should. You can hear more about these kinds of topics. Jacob's, an expert on this. Listen to the Naked Emperor podcast and subscribe to the AMQuickie, where you can see some of Jacob's writing in our newsletter.
Great way to wake up.
Yeah, I love. It really is. It's like I read it, when I'm sitting on the subway or whatever. So I'm able to kind of have some good, a good baseline of news before I do all my reading before the show. So anyway, Jacob, thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, quick break. And then we're going to have special guest Jason Myles on. Yes?
Before we get to Jason, I just wanted to,
Okay.
there's a little, sorry, I know we got to hurry here, but Elon Musk has his own AI chatbot.
Oh, he does.
It's called Grok. And
he's horrible at naming
he
things.
sucks. And I just thought we might look at the way Grok, in a fun way, summarize that same story. If you have this up, Bradley.
Grok sounds like a cartoon character bully.
Grok is somebody in the chat will probably let us know. I think it's from like some sci-fi thing where it's like to understand fully is the word Grok. But anyway, so this is the Grok summary of the from the whole Mars catalog from Grok. All right, folks, gather round for a no-holds-barred, profanity-laden roast of this week's X-shenanigans. We've got more twists and turns than a drunken sailor navigating a maze of hookers and blow. So this is Elon Musk's chatbot.
So there is it being trained
it's supposed to be
comedic?
funny. Yeah, it's trying to be funny. This is trying to be a funny summary of the Sam Altman thing. And just one paragraph here. So let's start with our boy Sam the Scapegoat Altman.
All right, but what's funny about calling him the scapegoat? Except, all right.
You don't understand humor. So let's start with our boy Sam the Scapegoat Altman. This guy's career is like a game of whack-a-mole on crack. One minute he's out on his ass, the next he's back in the saddle like a boss. It's like watching a never-ending episode of The Walking Dead where the zombies keep coming back for more.
It's just like that. So, you know, they did
Humorous.
2 cocaine references in 4 sentences.
And that took about the amount of power to like that Barbados uses in a month to come up with that.
Yeah, good. I hope we burn down more of the rainforest. So
Shocking that the writers won their strike demands despite this being one of the tools that the producers had in their pocketbook.
Yeah.
Apparently we can't turn it over to the AI chatbots yet.
Not quite. All right, folks, quick break. When we come back, we'll be with Jason Myles. We are back, and we are joined by friend of the show, Jason Myles, co-host of This Is Revolution, the podcast. And Jason has a mini book coming out, and we're here to talk about it. It was called I Was a Teenage Anarchist. Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you guys for having me. Sorry it took so long for me to fix my technical difficulties.
No, you're fine. We were supposed to have you on Thursday, but I was sick, so we're happy to have you on now to talk about it. I remember your piece about being about this very topic. What made you decide to make it into a mini book?
I was asked by one of the Sublation editors, who's been publishing like small pamphlets, which I really dig, actually, because people don't really read long 300-page books. Not everybody's going to be Matt Leck, sit around and read books all day.
Right.
Or us for our job. We have to read all these authors that come on. So I really like the small pamphlet idea, especially when it comes to ideas about theory. So he hit me up and he said, even if you have something that you wrote before, I would love to publish it. And I said, well, I have this thing that I really dug. Maybe you'll like it. And I sent it to him. And he was like, hell yeah, let's put it out. And we did. And as me being a very unconventional person, I wanted to have a launch party for this mini book pamphlet and invite my rock star friends in a nice, intimate setting in the San Francisco Bay Area where I'm from. And we did that this past weekend, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that stinks that, again, we wanted to have you on to talk about the book launch party, but it did end up passing. However, we can talk a bit about the book. Like, it's all good.
Yeah, it's Mexico.
Well, I mean, it looks nice. I saw a glimpse of the sky when you were showing us, so I'm pretty jealous.
It's so gorgeous right now.
All right, keep rubbing it in.
Jesus Christ.
It in. So, like, what did you do to kind of flesh out your story here, and
Sure.
What did you want to convey by making it longer and speaking about this particular time in your life and growing up and how it informs you today?
I wanted to talk about, because what I saw happening, in my opinion, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, what I see with kind of a left in its, as one friend said, embryonic stages right now, that really comes out of, in my opinion, more so the 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign. There are these two cultures that kind of fight against each other that I saw coming up in heavy music. And those are the cultures of deconstruction, which is the culture of no, and the culture of authenticity, which says, like, you can't be part of my movement because you're not cool enough, or you're not wearing the right thing, or you're not saying the right things. And I felt like those two things were kind of working against each other to nullify the movement, to grow beyond kind of a small niche milieu into the mainstream. So I juxtaposed the left with kind of the early stages of hardcore punk music.
And, what were some of the, not to spoil the whole book, but what were some of the main contrasts and connections that you found?
One of the things that I found is, like, co-optation is going to happen to your movement as you're kind of struggling for authenticity and realism. And you have to ask yourself a bigger question, which is, are you, and I say this in the book, are you raging at the machine, against the machine, or are you raging to be a part of the machine? And one of the things that I kind of came to the conclusion, and in talking to the guys at the live show the other night, they didn't necessarily disagree with it too much, that almost this music becomes like a cottage industry for people that can't get into the mainstream. Because once they get access into the mainstream, they don't mind playing all these corporate festivals, right? They don't mind playing Vans Warped Tour. They don't mind, getting sponsorships and playing these huge corporate venues. So what was the real meaning of what they were trying to do? And then you look at a band like Nirvana. Sorry if I'm all over the place. And Nirvana, in my opinion, we can talk about grunge and how it's not a genre all day long. That's probably another show that Sam would probably prefer to be on. But they're hardcore punk. They have their roots in hardcore punk. I mean, when Kurt Cobain kills himself, Dave Grohl picks up Pat Smear from the Germs and and Chris Novoselic joins my friends in Flipper, two seminal hardcore punk bands. But you change the name and of the genre of music, and it's more easily consumable to the masses. And what you ended up seeing with hardcore punk music through grunge is kind of, we'll take the aesthetic of this music that's supposed to be so subversive and anti-establishment, and we'll sell anti-establishment.
Yeah.
And now you've commodified it. And
well, Kurt hated that. I mean, that's I was a big Nirvana fan in my teenage years. I read Heavier Than Heaven, and there's a difference between nihilism and anarchy, or basically being a rebellious artist or someone speaking to these kinds of things. Because Kurt, for example, was very pro gay, pro these social movements, but also deeply resentful of the capitalist structures that force them into certain boxes. And I guess that is punk to a degree, but then
he didn't mind the record, the major label deal. I mean, he could have stayed at Sub Pop.
And
right?
you can see that tension, I guess, between wanting that success and then also hating yourself for wanting that success too, that he embodied.
I mean, the bigger question is, it's like, why do people have to swear a vow of poverty to be authentic, right? And that's something that happens in our world as well, where if you've reached a certain level of success, now you're no longer authentic. You've been sucked up by the establishment. But again, the culture of deconstruction, which I just kind of call a culture of no, and a lot of this music is just kind of anti-everything. And in the end, what was hardcore really, I mean, definitely there's aspects of people from the genre that had politics, like Jello Biafra, but he doesn't represent every group or person in the scene as well. And you kind of have, if anything, kind of anti-consumerism is the biggest thing that you get out of that, which is kind of what you see still now. Like the best capitalism is anti-capitalism, right? Being able to sell anti-capitalism as this cool subversive thing. And to me, what you end up getting is your leftism, if you will, much like your punkness or realness, becomes a lifestyle brand.
Yeah, I think that's really clear too, in the purity test or the authenticity test that you describe. And I mean, that's awesome that you explore that in your book. And what were some of the conclusions that you drew about that particular tension that can be applied to leftists counting Bernie's houses, for example, or liberals doing so, and saying that that in some way negates any of the politics?
I did recently write a piece for Damage Magazine about Ibrahim X. Kendi. And it's not necessarily about, let me pull back a little bit. I didn't want to make it about Ibrahim X. Kendi because, again, with stuff like that, it can end up being like, once the bad man's gone, then the bad theory is gone. And what he's building on is something that's been around for a while, trying to be kind of a race ventriloquist. What Kendi was able to do, though, with anti-racism was kind of kneecap the left, in my opinion. Excuse me. And he doesn't do it by himself. He actually has help from BLM. If you think about, I think it's 2015 when Bernie's on the stump trail, he's doing a speech about Medicare and Social Security, two things that definitely greatly benefit Black people and have for some time. Before he can even start speaking, BLM gets on stage and starts yelling about racist cops. And they're pushing back against someone that they probably should be working with, since his campaign is designed to help poor and working class Black people, poor and working class everybody. But it doesn't have, to them, a racialized agenda. And the Democratic Party is able to see that and take that and use it in spades. And Kendi, in his How to Be an Anti-Racist book, and I think there's a little bit of true believer in him. I don't think he's a straight up charlatan that's, like a carnival barker. What he's able to do is say, they're these conjoined twins, and it's capitalism and racism. And you can't be an anti-capitalist without being an anti-racist. But the basis of the book is about his spiritual journey into anti-racism, not his spiritual journey into Marxism. And it's kind of about the hearts and minds of white people. Ta-Nehisi Coates recently said something along the lines of, if you can't accept someone's humanity, there's no bit of legislation that will fix that. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Are you trying to say the Civil Rights Act doesn't mean anything unless all the white people in the world feel a certain way about me? Abe Lincoln couldn't do the Emancipation Proclamation only until he accepted that Black people were human beings, needed to be respected to a certain level.
Yeah.
I don't really care about what's in the hearts and minds of white people. I care about the economic stability of over 40 million Black people.
Yeah, it is segmenting and divorcing, racial equality and liberation, I should say, is probably the better word for it, right? From systems of politics and systems of change and revolution. It's like, oh, this is at least in reference to the Coates argument that you're describing here. It's much more individualized, atomized. It's emotional, as opposed to being like direct results of capitalism, colonialism, structures that made things this way. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is your assessment that really hamstrings efforts of liberation when you frame things in that way?
Yeah, because first of all, you're always going to play the oppression Olympics. I've never seen a winner at the oppression Olympics, and sorry, and sorry, and then what happens is when you get away from the economic model, what you'll find is these people end up winning in the corporate sphere, and that's really what Kendi was able to do with anti-racism. You also see it with Robin DiAngelo Kelly early on. I don't know if she's still the player that she once was in the.
Well, that's literally a white person who is framing anti-racism around the sensibilities of white people.
Kendi's isn't much different, right? It's about, we have to fix the hearts and minds of these people, because if we don't get into the hearts and minds of these people, if they don't see me as a blah, 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 then we can never really tackle this thing called capitalism. And I don't believe that. When we integrated schools, it wasn't because all the white people felt okay about it, right?
Yeah.
It took state power to get in there and do it. So to assume that economic freedom is going to come from all oppressive people saying, these cats are okay. It's just silly to think that way. But because of the way our media works as well, that's kind of the narrative that we have, right? Martin Luther King's speech at the March on Washington isn't about economic freedom, which it is. It's about the acceptance of a colorblind world. And that's not what it was all about. So these guys that kind of live in this past, an almost imagined past, especially people with like Ta-Nehisi Coates. Originally in that piece, I had a very large part about Coates, which, it's 2,000 words. You can only get so much in there, because I don't think you can really talk about Kendi, BLM, without talking about the rise of Ta-Nehisi Coates as well. He's kind of a integral character in that. Ture Reed talks about it extensively in Towards Freedom. I advise everybody to read that book. But he's kind of a wannabe Baldwin in a time where Baldwin doesn't make that much sense. So this idea that you have to humanize these people to understand their plight, and only then can we work towards a more just society. It sounds nice in a Hallmark movie, I guess, but the reality of it is I'd rather have, economic policy. I'd rather have jobs programs. I'd rather be trying to abolish the conditions that cause impoverished urban cores and massive amounts of homelessness. So that's only going to come through policy, not from winning the hearts and minds of racists.
Yeah, I mean, to return to Coates, because we praised him on this program recently for
Saying Israel's
for speaking out,
apartheid.
calling Israel an apartheid state. I mean, and the praise was not. I mean, it's all within the context of like, this is good because Obama reads him and hopefully crafts
And also
changing
to put that even into greater context, one, he was hired by Jeffrey Goldberg, who was a prison guard in Israel, and very pro-Israel. And also in his reparations piece that really brought him to fame, he mentions Israel as a positive example for how reparations can be done.
Which he apologized
exactly,
for.
Right.
Yes, yeah. So that's growth on that front. But like so it's helpful that someone like Coates is talking about Israel as an apartheid state. That's, to get the change we need to see, I'm going to take that 100%. But when you listen to his words, there isn't really any conversation about colonialism or capitalism at all, and the structures that led to apartheid or segregation, which he likens to, obviously, segregation and Jim Crow in the United States. But why were those systems in place? Why is Israel strategically placed in that way? Why were Black people subjugated and second-class citizens and continue to be disenfranchised, not in the place that they should be due to the systems of racism? It feels like it's difficult to get anti-racist writers to take that next step, at least mainstream anti-racist writers.
Well, because there's money to be made and people really love hearing a certain narrative, right? Look, on my show, if me and Pascal said white supremacy all the time, we'd have a hell of a lot more viewers. We'd get some nicer messages in the inbox.
Right.
But when I wrote in the damage piece, I said, I'm from a city called Richmond, California. The city that I'm from is one of the most diverse cities in America. It's pretty even across the board, right? Now, you take a Black woman that works at McDonald's, fighting, making maybe a little bit more than minimum wage. The owner of that McDonald's and most of the McDonald's in the urban core of the Bay Area is Black. Most of her coworkers are going to be Black. Her mayor is Latin. Her chief of police is Black. The cops arresting the Black people robbing her are Black. Maybe even her direct boss is Black. So what is anti-racism going to do for her? Richmond, California is also one of the most impoverished cities in the state and one of the more impoverished in the nation. So what has representation done for her? What has the trickle down of Black wealth done for her? Because it hasn't trickled. If it didn't trickle down for Reagan, why is it trickling down for us? Right. Yeah. So these cats can't really get beyond that argument because, like you said, it is an impassioned one that invokes an emotion of a real past. Is it a real past that these people lived? Most of them no. Right.
Right.
Coates didn't live in apartheid America at all. But you hear him talk, you would think he did. So again, I really want to talk about the economic situation for 40 million Black folks, other than really giving a damn about how every white person feels about me in their heart. I live in a country right now where people's petty racism just doesn't matter because I have economic buying power. I get paid in the American dollar. Cops don't mess with me. The natives of the area love me. So, my take on racism might be a little different than someone else's.
It's about power. I mean,
it is.
And that's
trip off this for a second, guys. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I interrupted you first.
I promise I'll shut up after this. I would love to hear you guys' take on this. I think I said this on Matt and David's show. I was recently on Left Reckoning. Please check that out. Around the same time as the 94 crime bill, Bill Clinton adds a sentencing requirement to hate crime law. I see you, I hear you, I feel you, Black people. Now we have this surplus population that's suffering due to deindustrialization. And the way we're going to handle this surplus population is with a massive crime bill, right? Now, the way this surplus population was able to thrive in urban areas is through the influx of cheap cocaine that's flooded into these areas because there's open air drug markets. So the government doesn't really care, right? So the government's turning a blind eye to all this cocaine. So you're talking now about like a kilo of cocaine that may cost these guys $3,000 to $5,000. And you can take that cocaine, cut it, and cook it down into crack. And now that $3,000 to $5,000 investment turns into $50,000 to $100,000. Not necessarily overnight, but probably in a couple days' time. You have an instant distribution system with gangs. And you have a captive market because of the location of where you are, right? Due to all these people that can't really move anywhere because they're impoverished. So now you're talking about street corners or apartment complexes or raggedy ass HUD homes that could be worth millions of dollars due to this product and its distribution system. And we looked at this problem for years, not as capitalism in an underground market in an illegal economy. We looked at it as wayward youth that have no fathers, right?
Another personalization of systemic problems.
And so as these kids are basically just using capitalism, right? Because they don't have the courts. Corporations can put people in litigation for months or years. These guys can't sue somebody over drug turf to take over a place. They use violence. You start recruiting more people because it's more profitable to take over more of this turf because it's worth so much money. Now, with that quick explanation, we can understand the 90s a little bit better. But the solution to this problem becomes lock them up. So again, in 1993, Bill Clinton, we know we're going to lock everybody up. We know we're going to build more jails. We're going to hire more cops. And people in these communities are asking for this because it's the only way we know how to solve this problem. And right before it happens, he goes, I see you. Anti-racism, we're going to put an extra sentencing requirement on hate crimes because this is unfair. This is unjust.
Yeah.
And it's like, I grew up in Richmond, California, which was a violent area in the 80s and 90s. I wasn't running from the Klan. You right?
Yeah.
That's not who I was scared of. What the hell is this bill going to do for me? But everybody applauded it. At the same time, we're also massively cutting welfare. So you have surplus population, people. And the only way we know how to deal with this surplus population, people, is not jobs programs. It's build more prisons, lock these fools up. Maybe some of them will learn how to code. F it, not my problem. But is anti-racism going to fix that at that point?
Or just this is a massive problem of warehousing a surplus population that we don't provide resources or economic opportunity for. So let's also add a few more racists into that system as well, and as if that's going to like deconstruct exactly what created this. So Jason, to wrap things up here before just to let you go, I want I'm on the site for your book, but it says it's out of stock already. Is it out of stock? Where can people get it?
Sometimes I'm that popular.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. It's hot off the presses.
No, send an email, ask Alfie. I'm sure they're going to do a second run. I'll send a message to him today and tell him, we need to do another.
All right. Well,
Left Reckoning selling too many books, apparently.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, shout out to Left Reckoning because someone showed up to the show who I definitely harassed. He looked at me and he goes, "Oh, I saw you on Left Reckoning and I figured I'd come through." I was like, "Oh, do you watch my show?" He goes, "No." And then Ben Burgess walks in. Then Ben Burgess walks in. He saw Ben Burgess. He goes, "Ooh, hey, I know you." And I was like, "This effing guy, man. Everybody knows Ben Burgess."
I mean, but it's just you're planting a seed, Jason. You're planting a seed. So we'll put a link to the store, and then like people can return to it, and there should be more in stock hopefully soon.
Yes. Yes.
The book is called, or the mini book is called, "I Was a Teenage Anarchist." I loved the piece. I can't wait to read the book. Jason Myles.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Bradley. Sorry again that I had some technical difficulties.
Yeah, don't apologize. And congrats on the Broncos being on a winning streak.
Can you just admit real quick before half the people leave that Jared Goff is a very good quarterback?
No, I will not admit that. What are you talking about?
Am I going to have to go to New York and watch a Lions game with you?
Dude, they're like one of the most talented teams in the NFL. They have a very creative play caller. He's okay, but he also can't throw outdoors because he doesn't have a very strong arm, and he's not
I disagree with that. So do we have? I'm supposed to do something in New York soon.
Okay.
Do we have to go and watch a football game together?
So you would rather have Jared Goff than Russell Wilson quarterback your team? Okay, I think I would too.
Sunday.
I think I would too.
Twice on Sunday.
Would you rather? I'm trying to think. Would you rather have Derek Carr or Jared Goff?
Goff.
I think I'd rather have Jared Goff too. Okay, I'm putting him at he's middle of the pack in the NFL. I'm not saying he's exceeded my expectations in Detroit.
Emma,
how about
we
that?
call what you're
this information. Whether or not it's true is not what matters. Though it does play a role.
Oh my God.
How is there three parts to that? Yeah.
Emma, we call this on our show Anglo-pessimism is what you're suffering from right now.
I'm a self-hating white?
Yes, you have to stop your Anglo-pessimism, accept Jared Goff as a quality quarterback, and then the world can be a better place. Just stop your Anglo-pessimism.
All right, well.
That's what it means to be a mighty man.
That's what it means to stand on the Jared Goff train. Oh, man. Well, they're a fun team anyway. So the Giants, I'm hoping they tank. That's really where I'm at this point.
We're at about half the concurrent viewers that we were at.
Oh my God, you people are horrible people. Jesus, I will watch a football game with all of you. Come watch a football game with me. I guarantee you will have a good time.
Next time you're in New York, we'll go to a sports bar or something, and we'll watch some games. I would really like that because can't really get many of my friends to do it with me. So new friends or not new friends. I've actually known you for a little while now, Jason. But anyway, appreciate you all. Appreciate you, Jason. There we go. I'm losing steam. Check out the book. Link in the description and at majority.fm. Thanks, Jason. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.
Yeah, that too. Peace,
Thanks,
guys.
Jason.
See ya. All right, guys. For everyone that's still around, you can check out ESVN for more of that kind of stuff. Bradley and I will be posting our picks against the spread at some point, either today or tomorrow, since we didn't have time to, or tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so we couldn't do our episode. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Left Reckoning last night we had Nick Terrace on the program to talk about America and how it deals with its killing of civilians with bombings dropped from the skies, and it's not much better than Israel. And also we talked a little bit about Norm Finkelstein on Candace Owens, including placing very well the context of those Hamas elections that Zionists point to say, like, hey, we can actually bomb these people indiscriminately because of the elections that happened in the 2000s. Finkelstein mentions that Hillary said after that, like, we should have rigged those elections.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that Candace Owens' entire posture changes when Finkelstein says that about Hillary, it's a masterclass in knowing your audience.
It's key. That is like Thanksgiving conversations coming up with some conservatives. Hillary's less relevant now, but back in like 2016,
Hillary's still relevant to conservatives, though.
So if you want to get them to trust you, just throw in a little rightful jab at Hillary Clinton, and they'll start to ease up. It's funny that that's all it took for Candace Owens. There's a Republican uncle in my life.
Yeah, there's somebody saying Hamas barely won, then killed all of their rivals there. Brutal. Maybe you know something better than Jimmy Carter did, who said that was a free and fair election. And then after Israel and America said, oh yeah, we should have rigged that election, and we can't deal with these people as political representatives. So yeah, I think that it's not to defend Hamas, but it is to say that they are not the obstacle to peace in that region. Actually, Israel and Zionism is.
We should have played that clip of Jimmy Carter. I guess that was from the 80s or 90s on Israel. Maybe we can find that for the fun half.
He wrote a book called, I can't remember what it's called, Democracy or Apartheid or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and of course AIPAC went crazy about that too, and because they exist not to assess things as apartheid accurately or not, but to lie about an apartheid project, ethnic cleansing project.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know that Carter wasn't the most amazing president, but even now at 99 years old on Halloween, the Carter Center called for a ceasefire in Gaza.
That's,
return of hostages, opening of humanitarian.
He's a
corridors.
blue-haired college kid, though, from what I understand.
Yeah. Smoke too much peyote. I mean, like the obviously Carter's post-presidency puts everybody else's to shame. And I guess we didn't even headline it, but that's Rosalind Carter passed away. And I know Jimmy's Carter's been in hospice
Since
so
February, yeah.
But
November
long
of
lives.
November of 2006.
Life well lived. Yeah.
November of 2006 was when he published Palestine: Peace, Not Apartheid. That's what the book is called.
And we know what the government of Israel chose.
Mm-hmm. All right. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Libertarians.
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35 501 1 half 3 8s
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
6 5 4 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
We are back. It is the fun half of the Majority Report. Antonin Scalia's Ghost says, new fun half intro on Sam's day off. Are we playing a new one? We can't even
It's actually an old one that we just lost track of.
Oh.
This is the one I think that Bullprog made in like 2021. It had featuring me and you.
Oh, nice.
But I think we had somehow lost it in OBS, but now it's back.
Okay,
we
gotcha.
have recovered it. So we have a few to work with now.
Very nice. Not Too Sure says, just catching up on this week's episodes and couldn't help notice Matt's deep cut Hey Arnold reference. Are you also rewatching the series now that Paramount added a bunch of Nickelodeon to their site?
No, I don't actually have Paramount, but that Hey Arnold, I mean,
that's a great show. Great
I think
kid show.
I think it might be the case that I might have moved from North Dakota to New York and chosen New York over California if not for Hey Arnold, but it definitely helped. Because like his room and
the one with
that
the
whole
big
like
skylight,
and also like the living situation. Like I'm from like suburban North Dakota, which is like not a whole lot. Like, look, I love Amanda and Bismarck. You know, you can find some stuff to do. I liked the idea of living in a boarding house with a whole bunch of different kind of people in it. And then also like public transportation, that sort of stuff. But yeah. The Ghost Train episode was excellent.
I recently, actually, like maybe a year or two ago, rewatched the episode because my fiance, which is always weird to say now, wanted to and thought it was really moving. The episode about the Vietnamese
extractions, whatever.
Like where the father, right. That's really well done. Sam's Dry Calves, am I shadow banned? Left is best and anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. No, you're not banned. Demian, those Seldowitz videos are bananas. Have you seen him harassing and threatening street vendors in NYC? I mean, we have that one video. Let's do that now, actually. Let's do that story.
They're calling him Hannibal Directive Lecter.
Oh, they are.
That's what I'm calling
him. So, this video has been circulating. I'm sure many of you may have seen it at this point.
There's actually several of them at this point now.
I did not see more than just this one.
Yeah.
But content warning.
There are at least 3, because you can tell by the time of day and the different dress that he has returned to this place to do this same thing.
So multiple videos, but with the same halal vendor.
Correct. Same
okay.
Day. Yep.
So this former U.S. State Department advisor. This is from
on
City
Palestine,
and State.
Israel.
Seldowitz, who worked in the United States State Department Office of Israel and Palestinian Affairs, and then served as acting director of the National Security Council South Asia Directorate in the Obama administration, decided that he was going to routinely harass a halal vendor in New York City with violent, anti-Islamophobic rhetoric. And content warning, a lot of this is quite disturbing, but let's hear what this former, again, Obama administration advisor took it upon himself to do and say to just somebody who is Muslim that he comes across in his neighborhood. No sound. All right, I
mean, you can holding up an Israeli flag.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I would note about this is both that he's like I think Will Menaker said serial killer vibes. This behavior is definitely antisocial and insane. I also think like this kind of racism exists in the Zionist movement and is not confronted within Zionism and is actually cultivated. I think. And so I don't think this is that atypical. It's more just maybe more outwardly pathological.
It's not my fault that you pray to a criminal.
Listen, I'm working now, okay? Can you leave, please? Go, please.
You're not working.
I'm just working here. Yeah,
there's nobody here. I'm going to put big signs here that say this guy believes in Hamas.
Do you want to buy something?
No, I don't.
Okay, why stay here?
I won't give you a penny of my money.
Listen. Why stay here?
What?
You wanna buy something?
No.
Okay, go.
I don't want to go. I have a right to stay here. You have no right to be on the sidewalk. You have a permit?
Yeah, I have a permit. I have everything. I have a license.
Okay, but you don't have a visa.
I have a passport, my friend. Go.
What do you have?
It's not your business. Go.
Oh, it is my business because I actually know the guy who owns all these.
I have an American citizen. Do you have it?
American citizen?
Yeah, do you have it?
How did you become an American citizen?
It's not your business. Go.
You're right.
I'm born here.
But you're a terrorist. You support terrorism.
Listen, go. I'm not support something.
You do. You support terrorism.
I'm not some. Go.
support
I'm just
killing
working
little
here.
children. You're a terrible person.
You kill children, not me.
What?
Go.
My kids? What about my kids?
You kill children, not me. Go.
I didn't kill children.
No, I mean,
okay, let's see
You
here.
know why? If we killed 4,000 Palestinian kids, you know what? It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough.
Go.
There you go.
That's the money quote.
That's Zionism.
Yeah. So that's him explicitly saying it wasn't enough to kill 4,000 Palestinian children.
How quick the move from you kill kids to we kill kids, we haven't killed enough. That's that's what we've been dealing with supporters of Israel and Zionists. Like because
who are
disgusting.
children? Children are the children that we decide to humanize, and that the Palestinian children, it's right to kill those thousands of children.
And also, just one thing about some of these other videos, again, content warning. He asks this guy in another video if he raped his daughter like Muhammad did.
I have the quotes here.
I mean the classics.
He takes a picture of him and says, "I'm gonna send this to the Mohabbarat in Egypt, and if your father likes his fingernails, he won't have them anymore." Things like that. Oh, but go ahead, Emma, if you have.
The video in question shows Seldowitz asking the food vendor racist and Islamophobic questions, including, "Did you rape your daughter like Muhammad did?" And what do you think of that? People who use the Quran as a toilet. When the vendor responds that he doesn't speak English, the man identified as Seldowitz laughs and says, "That's why you're selling food in a food cart, because you're ignorant." Seldowitz also threatens that the vendor will be deported to Egypt and tortured by the Mohabbarat, a reference to the Egyptian intelligence agency. A different video shows Seldowitz telling a halal cart vendor, "If we kill 4,000 Palestinian kids, you know what? It was enough. It wasn't enough." In all the videos, the vendor can be heard asking Seldowitz to leave and generally trying not to engage with his provocations. The activist who originally shared the videos wrote on X that Seldowitz has repeatedly harassed the halal cart vendor for weeks. An NYPD spokesperson told City and State that the local precinct is aware of the videos and is monitoring the situation. In an interview, Seldowitz offered a muted apology. "I regret the whole thing that happened, and I'm sorry," he said.
The things.
But, in the heat of the moment, I said some things I probably shouldn't have said.
The heat of passing a halal cart that I regularly pass and multiple times harass the guy.
Yeah. So Seldowitz said that he regularly passes the halal cart vendor and wanted to engage him in a discussion about current events in the Mideast. Why? He said that he became
about current events like how I'm going to have Egyptian intelligence rip out your dad's fingernails.
Yeah, just discourse.
It's current events.
He said that he became offended when the vendor did not condemn Hamas.
Yeah,
I went to the
exactly.
food court expecting to buy a soda, and I had an understanding that most of the food cart guys in New York are Egyptian, he said. So I said to him, "This is a tough time to be an Egyptian in New York." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because of what happened on October 7th with Hamas." And he said, "Well, I approve of Hamas. I like Hamas," or something like that.
Sure.
If I had to do it all over again, I would not have raised the religious aspect, Seldowitz said, insisting that he was not bigoted against Muslims. "I don't think I'm an Islamophobic guy. I've spoken up for equal treatment of Muslims on numerous occasions with numerous different people."
Sure. I'm not afraid of Muslims. I want them to die. I want their kids to die.
Yeah.
It's not fear. It's homicidal bloodlust.
And I will say also, I have obviously a very hard time trusting this guy's accounts of things, but even if we grant that halal cart vendor said that is the idea that could justify a actual literal campaign of targeted racist and Islamophobic harassment, as if that's justification for it, which is what this guy is saying it is. That if that's the case, I have free reign to literally threaten your life, threaten your family, disgrace your, denigrate your religion, and bottom line, even beyond that, harass you while you're working, make it so that people can't buy things from you because you're literally standing in front of his cart harassing him.
Well, he mocks him for his profession and says this is why you're
in
this position, because you're ignorant.
And he says no one's here. You're not working there. Yeah, he's not working because you're harassing him, so people aren't going to walk up and stand in line while you threaten his life and his family's life.
Yeah. Manhattan-based lobbying firm Gotham Government Relations cut ties with him. But his opening quote to City and State was, "I did have an argument with a food vendor. It is quite possible that it's me. I mean, I have not seen the video, but I believe it's probably me." Yeah.
And I just want to be clear about.
How do you not kind of have a recollection of that?
And I want to be clear also that what's interesting about this with this particular person being the one identified in the video beyond just a regular non security clearanced State Department official.
Asshole at a protest.
Stuart Seldowitz is cited in Madeleine Albright's autobiography as being the person who notified her of the Srebrenica massacre in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That he was the one in contact with the ambassador to Bosnia to be notified of the genocidal actions in that particular town. That is how connected and clued in this guy was to U.S. foreign policy, that he was literally the intermediary in a global conflict to the Secretary of State under Bill Clinton. And this is now what this guy is doing with his time.
It is just goes to show how institutionalized Islamophobia is in the West. And Israel is a colonial outpost. That was that was the genesis of why Israel became what it is today, due to the designs of the British government that were also in many ways anti-Semitic in nature, of not wanting too many Jews to be in Great Britain and to be in other Western white areas. So they felt that Zionism was the best path forward. And as a result, they heavily, with the United States, other countries in the West, heavily militarized Israel, and the more militaristic right-wing Zionists won out as those structures got put into place over and over again. And year after year, from the creation of Israel to the point that we're at now, the institutional dehumanization of Arabs, Muslims, Palestinians became more and more robust, to the point where someone like this can be appointed by can work with two Democratic presidential administrations and it not necessarily be a red flag.
Because he's a typical Zionist. I'm sorry, if Zionists want to act like this isn't the typical sort of way, I mean, the logical conclusion of that philosophy, they can fucking prove it, in my opinion. I'm so, like, this sort of thing where you have a guy that is willing to say, yeah, not enough kids were died, challenge you on Hamas.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear about this. Terror is a condemnable tactic, but also you have a Zionist telling you to condemn terror is absolutely cynical. Terror is foundational to the formation of Israel. This is a matter of public record. Bombing, you listen to Avi Shlaim talk about why does his family, the Baghdadi Jews, in 1950, why did they feel the need to go to Israel? Well, it's because there was a bunch of bombs being set off in the nationalism that is engendered by the settler colonial Zionist project that was excluding Palestinians. All of a sudden made people say, like, hey, why don't you leave here and go to Israel? That was what the Arabs thought, because of, like, the nationalism, and he calls himself an Arab Jew. But also, he never reported this until late in life, but there was rumors that Zionists themselves were planting the bombs to scare the Jews that his family came from in Baghdad to Israel. And now he has documented proof of that in his most recent book called
which is rare, because of how, like, that mindset has been aggressively cultivated over a century of essentially completely delegitimizing, getting rid of Palestinian records and history in order to create one history that's completely dominated by Western framing. We talk about how indigenous people in this country, black people in this country, don't have a fair voice in the way that we retell history. That is on steroids and amplified to such an insane degree because of the foundational racism of the recent settler colonial project. It's taken centuries for the United States to undo that. Israel's only 100 years in, and that's why you're seeing, less, obviously, like since the formal declaration.
Yeah,
but
right.
you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Less, it's
depending on where you peg it. Yeah, I mean, the Zionist project that started causing these schisms is older than 100. But yeah, like 48 was the real schism and the Nakba. But I have this clip of Avi Shlaim talking with who is the
Karmi.
Karmi. She's a Palestinian who was who had to flee Palestine in the Nakba, and Shlaim, of course, I just told you his history, and I'll let him actually retell it here in his own words.
Made the most of it and had a very happy life, contented life, and they were good parents, and we were very, very well settled in Baghdad. The question is, why did we suddenly leave in 1950? And the answer to that is the rise of nationalism, both Arab nationalism and, more importantly, Jewish nationalism or Zionism. And in that period, the Zionist movement had embarked on the systematic takeover of Palestine. And in 1948, which you call the Nakba, the catastrophe, the Iraqi army fought in Palestine and then withdrew back to Iraq. After the war, there was a backlash against the Jews, not just in Iraq, but throughout the Arab world, and people started turning against the Jews. Until then, we were one minority among many. There were other minorities. There were Christians, there were Chaldean Catholics, there were Circassians, Assyrians, Turkomans, and the Jews didn't stand out. We were just one minority among many, and Iraq did not have a Jewish problem. Europe had a Jewish problem. In Iraq, we did not constitute a problem, and there was a long tradition of religious tolerance. But now that the State of Israel was established and had carried out the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, people turned against the Jews and said, you don't belong here. Why don't you go and join your brothers in Palestine? You are outsiders. That was the big change. And my mother, when she talked about this period, said to me, when the State of Israel was created, everything was turned upside down. So it was the creation of the State of Israel that necessitated the Exodus. We have that in common.
Yes. The Balfour Declaration and the expressed intent of declaring a Jewish state in a place that was already lived in by Palestinians, but also had a Jewish minority in a population of majority Muslims. Yes, but it was like multi-religious in that way. Inflamed nationalist tensions in every sense of the word, and presented an existential threat to a lot of folks who are already living in that area, who also were choked off from actually even having newspapers in the formation of Israel, and they had to go to Egypt and find outside sources for them to find out what was really happening and what the intentions were here. And then the violence began to ramp up because of the arrogance of the British government, and then later the West that continued to fund Israel in a settler colonial project. And like, just because the viewing Israel as a settler colonial project, I think, is key to understanding and reframing this and untangling the deep indoctrination that everyone in the West has experienced because of this revisionist history that has been put forth by the U.S., by the U.K., by Israel
and
as
Netanyahu,
well.
Really.
Yes, and I think once you finally do understand that, it makes things quite clear. It makes things quite clear how violence and terrorism were created, because to paraphrase and build off of what Matt said earlier, terrorism is a horror, but it's a result of systems. And when you choke off any kind of diplomatic or political solution for an entire population for decades and decades, terrorism is naturally going to come from that. And it's not just about cutting off political solutions as well. It's about the violence that then that inflames. So we're restating in many ways all of the points that we've made before on this program, but
this is fundamental. This is the fundamental racism that allows Israel to kill so many civilians. And what it is it's simply racist. That the idea that the cause of the anti-Semitism or religious strife in the Middle East is in the pathology, it's in the minds of Muslims, it's in the Quran maybe, it's not in the extremely violent expulsion of hundreds of thousands of people that all of that region had to witness and also like take refugees from. It's just in their minds. And I'm sorry, it's just racism. Everybody that thinks that is just a simple racism. That's why I say at the start of this, if that's not a typical Zionist, Zionists should prove it.
Yeah, it is. You would hear that all the time. I mean, you hear that kind of rhetoric all the time, I would imagine, over settler dinner tables when, the 700,000 right-wingers that live in the West Bank.
10%
I'm sure they
of
talk
people,
exactly like that.
Dr. Baruch Goldstein, the guy who shot up a mosque in the 90s, 10% of Israelis think he's a hero.
Is it Smoltryk that has a poster one of the members of the Netanyahu administration, of a mass killer of who's the poster of? Do we know? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I don't want. I'm
probably Goldstein.
I'm drawing a blank here, but yeah, like to put a button on it, viewing it as a settler colonial project really demystifies so much of it, because you see the same dehumanization efforts all the time in other settler colonial projects, whether it be in the continent of Africa, whether it be in India. Same exact rhetoric used. You hear it today. It's just an updated modern version. To Matt's point, it's not about their skin color making them a certain way, or their brain size making them savages. It's about their ideology. It's about their religion. It's about their virulent anti-Semitism that is in some way intrinsic to the Palestinian population. If you want to bring it domestically to the United States, it's about the culture of black people, why they can't get out of crime, why they can't get out of these. Where are the fathers? I mean, they've got to pull up their pants.
No, and
if they actually want to civilize themselves.
We can bring it full circle. It also produces racists. That Stuart Saldowitz, of course, he should be fired, and be lucky that that's all he gets, acting like that in public. But it produces racists. He is a product of a settler colonial thing. That's not, again, like, it's not because he is Jewish. It's because he is a supporter of a settler colonial project, and that's the same reason we get racist here. Because the guilty conscience, at a certain point, you can't just, like the liberals do, deny it. You can't just deny that we genocided Native Americans. You can't deny that we put them in the Dakota in concentration camp, in one of their holy places during our Civil War that apparently redeems this country. Like, you can't actually deny that stuff, so you have to embrace it.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, it's Mark Ben-Gvir.
It was
Ben-Gvir.
Ben-Gvir
of National Security had a picture of Baruch Goldstein in his living room.
Of course. Basically, like a Columbine shooter, but instead of some high school kid, it was a settler that just decided, like, too many Muslims at that mosque.
Yeah. It's just racism. It's really not that complicated. Acid Expert says, "Oh my God, Emma, yes, Hamas is a very violent and malignant gang. There are gangs born out of poverty across the world, but these gang members are brown and Islamic."
Yeah, I mean, look at the conditions that they're in. I think, like, I would prefer a resistance to the illegal occupation and ethnic cleansing to be Marxist and secular. I definitely would put that above the tier listing.
Israel shouldn't fund the Islamist. Yeah,
right. There's that. You specifically prefer the Islamist group because the secular group is making too much ground. And yeah, also maybe a concentration camp isn't the best place to be developing sort of enlightened political values.
Yeah. And for another racist trope is, where is the Palestinian Mandela, where, he's actually been imprisoned. Barghouti has been in prison since the early 2000s. And he is one of the most popular figures within the Palestinian population. And he's more akin to Mandela because he, unlike someone like Gandhi, doesn't eschew violent resistance.
Also, Ilan Pappy has he edits, so it's contributions by a whole bunch of different people. But Israel and South Africa, going into that metaphor, and actually, you want to quibble with the term apartheid, it actually makes more sense in Israel than it did in the original South Africa, because South Africa, Africans could go on strike, for instance, because they were an important part of the labor force. Israel has never been okay with that. That's why the foundational labor Zionists who founded Israel, their project died pretty much immediately, because they're like, oh yeah, we're not integrating the labor force. We'll give you your own ethno unions that we also control. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah. Someone just sent an IM with the longest name possible, and it completely ruined the IMs for me. Can people not do that? Because it messes why? Happy Thanksgiving.
You might get blocked, right?
Emma, Matt, and Bradley, may I please get, I think you're trying to be cute, and it's fine in a vacuum, but you've really messed up my workflow here, so just please try to keep your names.
That's the username?
Yeah, it's it's a sentence as a username.
Okay. That almost seems like a mistake, but
no,
maybe I'm
it's a joke.
Generous, yeah.
And I'm sorry. I appreciate it, but the kind words. But I'm not going to read your IM because I'm frustrated. Okay. Kirby says, this morning it was proven to be a false flag by Zionists. They'll lie and lie and lie to defame you. I'm not. Oh,
what was a false flag?
I can't.
Oh, because the thing's broken.
Yeah, the thing's broken. Okay. Let's see. Maybe I can get some here. Acid X Burns. Ooh, do you know has enough billion and million heirs that could say buy an election in an apartheid state? Christian Evangelical Zionists. That's who. The Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, also known as Project 2025. All right, I can read IMs, but I can't see the names anymore, so I'm just gonna read
it
them.
ruined all the other ones too?
Yep.
Oh wow.
My white privilege ass would have definitely beaten that man up.
Well, good thing that, I mean, honestly, like, thank goodness for cell phone cameras, because it probably makes it slightly easier, and I can't even imagine being in that situation, to be able to film somebody when they do that, at least document it, because it would have been very bad if that halal cart guy got out and decked him, because he is a halal cart driver, and that guy is a diplomat for the American government. Our justice system is not going to handle that correctly.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, thank you, Bradley. It was a mistake. No worries. Apologies for getting frustrated. All right, let's take a call really quickly. Maybe I can try to fix this right now. Calling from a 361 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Alfred from Texas.
Alfred from Texas. What's on your mind?
So yesterday Sam Harris came up and you guys were talking about Islamophobia, and I would just like to make a point. It's one point Sam Harris has made that that term Islamophobia, it's a catch-all, and it's often used to conflate criticizing a religion, anything with the doctrine. That's being conflated with, bigotry against Muslims as a people, which is obviously wrong. So I would just note that.
So what? Okay.
No, I mean, the problem is you're here. I can explain very clearly where you're wrong and where Sam Harris is wrong. It's because this whole thing about we're just criticizing a religion is bullshit. Actually, it's not a useful political thing. That's why we're not criticizing Judaism with regards to looking at Israel's actions. It is ahistorical. It is the entire problem with new atheists is that they are allergic to any sort of look at history and instead try to, maybe we can squint at the Quran enough to understand why there's violence in the Middle East. That's the problem with Sam Harris.
And I'm sorry, Alfred. It's just
we've seen this for years.
Islamophobic.
You should look at our content on this topic, actually.
It is Islamophobic because this analysis is really only applied to Muslims in this context, versus, as Matt says, we would never say that Zionism is a problem of the text of Judaism, because that's fundamentally wrong and also anti-Semitic. To boil down an entire population to their holy text, to say that that is the motivation as opposed to what drives all other people in terms of like their self-determination, their identity, their incentives, and only apply it to this particular religion based on your reading of the text is fundamentally racist, because that is dehumanizing their motivations, their agendas, their incentives.
Real reason for the actual violence that Sam Harris is obscuring intentionally.
Yes. And so in the same way that you cannot blame Judaism and should never for Israel's crimes, blaming Islamophobia for Muslim fundamentalist crimes is just as bigoted.
Okay, well, so in the New Testament, as you know, this is a holy book, and Christianity started basically as a breaking off of Judaism, right? Jesus was a Jew, and there was a lot of animosity amongst Christians towards the Jews for not, converting. And that's kind of reflected in the New Testament. So do you think the New Testament could be blamed for any kind of anti-Semitism?
No.
No?
I mean, again, I'm dealing in 21st century politics where it's about money, it's about capitalism, it's about colonialism, it's about domination, it's about superpowers, it's about weaponry, it's about territory, it's about resources.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm
think
not dealing with freaking texts and what's in what Bible.
Like the
from
Nazis
years ago.
arrived at anti-Semitism. Like I think they're obviously the Catholic influence, and that as a structural institution, I would look at toward that history and not try to divine all of that just by looking at the fucking text.
Yes, Christian nationalists in this country also say that they're abiding by the Bible, but they'll eat shellfish and they'll wear claws of, a cotton blend, which is supposedly against the Bible. They use religious texts, and extremists and right-wingers do so of every stripe. Hindu nationalists, let's include them here too. Others, they use them as a cudgel or as like an excuse, a touchstone for their extremism. You're
afraid of reading history.
You are only applying the analysis.
I'm glad you know that about me.
No, I mean,
you
are only applying that analysis to Muslim people, 1.8 billion people on this planet. And don't you understand how that is painting with such a broad brush that completely wipes away secular Muslims, people living in Indonesia?
Zero explanatory value.
Yeah, I mean, there is really nothing to really glean from this except, bigotry, honestly.
So you honestly don't think that the New Testament or the Quran had any kind of effect on the actions of people?
No, I'm not saying
Bro,
that didn't
have you been listening to the program? We literally just told you with a historian from fucking Baghdad, a Jewish Arab, who said actually there was a lot of coexistence. You know what didn't happen in 1948? A change to the Quran. You know what did happen? The expulsion of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in a region that had to absorb that. That's the reality. So you can take a magnifying glass to the Quran, but you know what? What you're proving here is that you're actually allergic to dealing with real history, and you want Sam Harris and other charlatans like that to do close readings of religious texts so you can feel superior.
What kind of mind reader are you?
A good one.
Okay.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah.
Again, we're really in.
I could tell there's nothing in it. There's nothing about it's Islam and Jews have hated each other for thousands of years. It's just fucking racist.
It is racist, and why are Christians and Jews able to elevate above the violence that is in the religious texts? And I doubt that this caller would dispute that in the Old and New Testament there is deep violence, particularly in the Older Testament. But why are the Christians or the Jews in this instance, who are more like aligned with our concepts of whiteness, and who are more in the West, and there's more money for those populations, and thus that's where the positive coverage goes, why are they assigned the benefit of the doubt that they're able to rise above the brutality of their texts, even though the body counts from the United States government in the Middle East far exceeds what any kind of Islamic terrorist could ever do? That they have the rationality to rise above, but the savages, the Muslims, they don't.
The civilization haters.
They are anti-civilization. That is colonialist logic.
Exactly.
So this is just straight racism. And I tried to say this earlier. We updated the skull measuring and the skin color assessments to ideology. And you see it domestically when it comes to racist tropes about Black people, Latino people, indigenous people, what have you. And so it's just a way to dehumanize the other, to continue to justify subjugation.
I'm sorry, but people, maybe I could have been more, what that guy needs to know is he is in the heart of darkness. Joseph Conrad style, white paranoia about other people. that sort of thinking, it's exactly where Sam Harris has always led, and that's why he's like, even like compared to Hitchens, who obviously had his problems, would never make these sort of arguments that like he would at least bring history into it and acknowledge that actually Palestinians have a complaint.
Yeah.
And this idea that actually no, what he wants there is just let me be able to listen to Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins talk about these holy books and let that be enough. Let me not learn about 48. Let me not learn about 67. Let me not learn about Lebanon. Let me not learn about any of that stuff. Let me just have you deduce it all because you read their holy book and it's better than and it's worse than ours.
Our team's better. This is like this. Honestly, when you're engaged, the right-wing politics are anti-history. So whether it's some stupid right-winger talking about deontology versus whatever and completely removing context and history from their political analysis when they're just talking about philosophy or when they're talking about just, which religion is less savage. Understand that they're trying to dismiss history while making arguments that are overly simplistic and usually reactionary.
And you look back at a time where like we actually took these books more seriously, and actually no, there's not one sort of type of person that a fealty to these as a guide for life create. Benjamin Lay was a Quaker in the 1700s. A lot of those folks had quite different views about, say, slavery than the dominant sort of Protestants did. And again, what explains that? Not that they just happen to like maybe interpret things from the Bible different, but they have different material structures that their society was built upon with regards to like, finance from Britain and things like that. Like these are the things that Sam Harris and the new atheism pretty much almost to a person, and even like it even ruined Hitchens, I think, made him less interesting to listen to, is like wanting to make it all about this what Sam Harris called the motherlode of bad ideas. Well, I think what a motherlode of bad ideas, even greater than Islam, is actually settler colonialism.
Yeah. Calling from a 732 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh my God, I think that's me. Hi. How you doing?
Hi, doing well. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Dylan from New Jersey, otherwise known as Chettle.
Which county? You don't need to say where exactly.
Oh, sorry. Monmouth?
Monmouth. All right, there you go. What's on your mind?
I'm sorry, my dog's barking. I was wondering, vis-a-vis the Ukraine conflict, if you had heard of or what you thought about Norm Finkelstein's position that Russia did in fact have a moral right to invade Ukraine. He was on his little, did an internet thing on it. He
That's
said,
his position?
I just, yes, ma'am.
Well,
he said he disagreed with Chomsky that,
then I very much disagree with that pretty virulently. But I would want to hear what he had to say before I made an assessment. Not that I don't trust you, but
yeah, I also don't buy the like sort of, I guess, sub-war conditions justify a overt invasion. I reject that premise too.
Okay, I guess I could try and quickly paraphrase his position. I guess he essentially says that the
NATO
past
expansion
several
and that stuff.
Yeah, the NATO, they ignore, it was provocation after provocation, yada, yada, yada. Russia didn't have a viable diplomatic solution, therefore, moral right to invade.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I don't like that. Yeah.
Matt has referenced Hitchens a few times at this point. Like, there are people who have very strong opinions and who are useful communicators about certain issues who I might have deep disagreements about on other things. So I don't agree with that.
I think it's worth pointing out, and not to justify an invasion, like America's actions and promises made, and some contradictory ones. I think the people that are sort of resistant to that are probably even a bigger problem than people that want to. Even Norm Finkelstein, I think we should be able to, one of the whole reasons we're supposedly fighting for the West is free speech, what I genuinely do agree with, and I think like those sorts of things were being suppressed. But I don't think it justifies the opening of an actual invasion. No, I don't agree with that.
Appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bavarian Fish Taco says Hitchens, for all his faults and sometimes uncharitable characterizations of Islam, always seemed to have a larger, deeper critique of religious fundamentalism, especially when wed to ultra-nationalism and, as Matt pointed out, settler colonialism. Floyd the Barber says, I've erased around 5 texts because Emma started saying what I was about to say. Clearly, MR only employs mind readers. Callers, beware.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, this was our whole interview process was just doing this the whole time. Ramona in New Hampshire. It blows my mind that people can't hear themselves talk about Muslims as being savages and beastly when they do it. Granted, I will say that most people who traffic in this are intentionally doing so, but those who are just plain dumb and ignorant will just say the most racist drivel imaginable and then get shocked when you point out how obviously racist it is. God, that caller pissed me off. John from Colorado commenting on the Islamophobia caller. Religious criticism is really just not directly applicable to the current situation. Like Matt says, there's actual history that's in a straight line from now, and in current moments, especially, the whole religious criticism is just a thinly veiled excuse to defend racism. I have issues with religion in general, but that's an entirely separate conversation.
Absolutely. It's people that it's the honestly, Karl Marx's provocatively titled essay, two essays on the Jewish question. The second one is famous, and Marx is guilty of expressing anti-Semitic beliefs despite himself being a descendant from Jews in private letters. But his essays on the Jewish question, the second one is when people say anti-Semitic. It's definitely edgy and trafficking in anti-Semitism as a language. But the point it's making is an ironic one that people in Europe are criticizing Jews, but actually the problem is capitalism. It doesn't look so good, but the actual first essay, which people know less about, because you can't call Karl Marx anti-Semitic using it as evidence, is that he argues against a bunch of young, sort of what they call young Hegelians at the time, which were saying before Jewish people can be liberated as part of mankind as a whole, they have to deal with their Judaism first. And actually a lot of these, the exact same thing happens with the new atheist Sam Harris types, which is like, look, we would love to have Muslims have democracy.
Yeah.
We would totally love to do one person, one vote in Israel even, because we love the Enlightenment so much. But
they can't
just
be
aren't ready
responsible
for it.
stewards.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen that they don't like gay people?
Yep.
By the way, tip for your Thanksgiving conversations. That is a colonial trope.
I remember how much good we did for the women of Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah. Bombed some female journalists. Killed them. Women in media, folks. Not in occupied Gaza. All right, let's have some fun here. So, Mike Huckabee has a show? He has a show? What network?
TBN.
Trinity Broadcasting Network.
I do want to shout out the Not Even a Show Twitch page, which does Huck Watch. And you sometimes forget Huckabee still exists. That's because he is absolutely at the bottom of his game. He's not doing well. I think he might even have AI help him write parts of this show. But anyway, he's got a Thanksgiving monologue. I thought we could.
Is he prepping to do like some Santa Mall gigs? Like he really has.
He does not look well.
He's got a very strange fitting suit on. It looks like he could has like a belt bomb on.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm confused about the whole shebang here, but like. What is TBN in the right-wing media space? This is a religious network?
It's like an international Christian network.
Okay. So
Trinity Broadcasting Network, the Holy Trinity. So there you go.
So he's talking about Joe Biden here, and Mike wants to be a comedian?
Yeah, I just contextualize this as like they're trying to fill out a segment. And they don't have a whole lot of talent as far as writers. And Huckabee thinks he's like some sort of like Mark Twain style yarn teller. But this, you can tell, like this is just a disaster.
Yeah. I guess all the good or like the serviceable conservative writers are over there at Gutfeld.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Thanksgiving to all. You know, we are going to be celebrating Thanksgiving this coming week. And even with Joe Biden in the White House wandering around like last year's turkey, and Kamala Harris cackling like this year's turkey, there's still a lot to be thankful for, even though almost none of it originates in Washington, D.C. I'm grateful that it's already deer season in Arkansas, as well as in many parts of the country. And before it's over, I hope to fill my freezer yet again this year with delicious, healthy, lean, and organic venison. Now, I've got friends and even a few grafted-in family members who just aren't all that pumped about eating Bambi's daddy. Some people in the audience not that happy about it. But when they do that, I just sing the lyrics to Circle of Life and remind them that if they really are into healthy protein that is as organic as the acorns off the oak trees, then venison is the meat of choice. I use it in my world-famous deer meat chili, for example. World famous, you ask? Well, they probably don't know about it in Beijing, Tehran, and North Korea. But why would I share my chili recipe with the communist Chinese who have done little to share with us other than the Wuhan virus?
No, sorry.
And I sure...
I'll just say, like, it's a bit rich of America to be talking about how China doesn't want to share with us, as we are actively prohibiting them from buying any sort of advanced computer chips that might be used towards the AI purpose, including the RTX 4090, which is the best gaming graphics processing unit available on the market. But yeah, I think it's us that we can't share. But
so like these late night style monologues are supposed to be kind of series of jokes. Yeah. But like they has the cadence of a joke about venison.
Yeah.
But it keeps not...
It never gets there.
...getting to any kind of punchline.
I'm also struggling with the fact that he says Biden is wandering around the White House like last year's turkey. If we're talking about a Thanksgiving turkey, wouldn't that turkey be dead?
Yeah.
Why would it be wandering? Like last year's turkey would theoretically be consumed or dead.
Or the one he pardoned? The one he pardoned.
He didn't even mention the pardon, though. How are we even supposed to glean that it's the pardoned turkey?
I'm also confused by the cackling turkey. I mean, I hear gobbling.
Yeah,
I don't hear cackling.
It's like...
okay.
Go ahead a little bit more.
...to share with us other than the Wuhan virus.
It's 2023.
And I sure wouldn't give it to the Ayatollah in Iran. I mean, heck, Joe's given them billions already, and they're turning around and making Christmas rockets for Hamas and Hezbollah. And sadly, folks in North Korea, they're reduced to eating grass clippings and tree bark. They wouldn't know a good bowl of deer chili from a bowl of cow droppings. So, yeah, they wouldn't.
Even
so
his crowd is like,
my
gosh.
deer meat chili isn't famous everywhere, but in my world, it's famous. And that makes it world famous chili.
No, that's not how it works.
And by the way, good venison can make wonderful tacos, spaghetti, meatloaf, summer sausage, and of course, chicken fried deer steak, which cooked in my big black iron skillet will make you jump up and break dance on the kitchen table.
He just do a black
So I'm grateful for deer season. I'm also grateful that duck season is going to start this weekend.
It's
a monologue.
Honestly, really worried about his freaking meat obsession. This is like, I mean, Jordan Peterson is watching this. He's like, I'm going to go into relapse.
What? It's like, I mean, I go on some Jags, but this guy is unfocused.
Yeah.
Just want a little bit more?
Yeah, I guess.
And I'm also grateful that duck season is going to start this weekend in Arkansas.
Yeah,
cool. All right, but so the venison thing had no punchline.
No.
It's just over.
It's
just over.
All right, now on to the next meat.
He was just bragging
choice.
about like having venison.
Is going to start this weekend in Arkansas. And did I mention that Arkansas is the duck hunting capital of the world? And yes, I actually do mean the entire world, as people fly from as far away as Europe to experience the sacred sight of thousands of mallards coming in for a landing across the Arkansas prairie and throughout the Delta in an area that is comprised of the white Arkansas, and Mississippi rivers,
All right,
along with the food source.
I can't tell if it's an like this sounds like he's gonna say and 15% off this beef jerky or venison jerky with Huckabee promo code. That's what it sounds like. And now ducks. So he's just running through the meats.
Exactly.
So now it's like it could be a tourist board situation.
You're right, exactly. It's like come to Arkansas.
Well, I hope he's doing all right.
Okay, we get some good stuff here.
A little bit more?
We get some good stuff here.
We have more?
Yeah, there's some good
Sorry, Emma.
Okay.
Productive rice fields in the United States, all located in eastern Arkansas. I often say that the first day in heaven is going to be a flooded timber duck hunt. It is.
Jesus, this guy
I'm not sure what we
do
after that, but God wants us to get off to a great start. And it's obvious we're going to kick things off with our heavenly versions of a 12-gauge Benelli semi-automatic shotgun and bust ducks for the first night's dinner in glory. That's what we're going to do, folks.
It's in the Bible.
I swear, I honestly think this was written by AI.
Mm-hmm. It could have been. I mean, he wouldn't know the difference, really. And I don't understand why he's decided that this is his next calling after, running for president and being the governor for a while. It's that he wants to be a late-night talk show. He is in keeping with many of the conservatives who, have all of those show business ambitions that they keep very, very, thinly underneath the surface there. But
just to graph that, what we've seen so far, and I think about a couple minutes, was I'm thankful. It's Thanksgiving time. I have a chili recipe. Has venison in it. Also, duck hunting season's coming up.
It has venison in it. Venison's amazing. You can put it in your fridge. Venison. No one in China eats venison. Venison.
Also, Arkansas is really good for duck hunting.
Ducks. And when you go to heaven, you're going to get a lot of ducks, but you're going to shoot them yourself.
It's like it's on Ambien.
God hands out hunting rifles for ducks.
I just watched the rest of the video, and I think we should watch.
Okay. But this is like me going on a monologue, being like, and in heaven there's going to be lots of cashews, and the New York Giants win the Super Bowl every year. I read it.
The waiver wire is always open.
Yes. Yeah. Don't you relate to this?
Win one more Super Bowl.
And now on to hockey.
Hey, it may not be in the Bible, but it's a waiting for us. I just feel it. Now, of course, there are some other things to be thankful for, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Although if we don't do much better in the coming elections, we might not have any of those things left.
No more venison.
And then we'll be hunting all right, just to feed our families.
Each other.
Not simply to supplement our groceries and to enjoy the outdoors. Well, I'm obviously thankful for my family, a wife of almost 50 years, 3 grown children who all turned out pretty good.
Pretty
and
good.
7 absolutely adorable grandchildren. I'm thankful for good health. Well, except for the aches and pains that my doctor dismisses as an issue of age.
This is just his internal monologue.
I'm looking for a new doctor, by the way. So And I'm also thankful for a wonderful church family where I hear strong biblical messages.
Is this his dating
enjoy
profile?
edifying relationships with fellow pilgrims in the process of life, and who fellowship with those who genuinely bear one another's burdens.
I'm looking for
So as we prepare
someone
for
who
Thanksgiving,
loves venison.
and I start preparing not
Fellowship.
1, but 2 turkeys for the masses who will descend upon my house Thanksgiving
Next
Day.
meat.
I will not be focusing on
We
the
like meat,
odorous
right?
politics of Washington, but rather the magnificent aroma of both smoked and fried turkey, cornbread dressing, pecan pie, and gallons of iced tea. And folks, I'm still glad to be an American.
Wow, what a powerful message.
I am going to have a full-blown heart attack after I dismiss my doctor for telling me that I'm having aches and pains.
It's funny how durable the politics of red meat are, that can become a cliche and it's literally their main appeal.
He just did a fucking 5-minute monologue about 3 different kinds of meat with no punchline.
The blocks from the writers was just like, all right, the A block's venison, the B block is ducks, and the C block is the turkey.
Yes. Yeah. Bring it home. You gotta bring it home.
It's just 2 minutes each. We go venison, duck, turkey.
Okay,
Yeah.
I need to run this back through ChatGPT. There wasn't enough racism. So can you add the thing about how North Koreans eat dung? Thank you.
Thank you.
A beautiful Thanksgiving message for everyone.
Anyway, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. That's just what we wanted to leave you with.
My God. All right.
2 turkeys and gallons of iced tea.
That part was also out of left field.
By the way, I'm looking for a new doctor.
Yeah. He says, like, I'm sweating buckets because of all the meat that I'm eating and why I haven't taken a shit in 4 days.
He's probably this guy's gonna get. How come he's gonna get gout? That's what I'm concerned
I mean, exactly. He's gonna die of scurvy or something old timey. It's just like he had no nutrition, just lived off venison. Okay. Well, it's 2:32, and I'm thankful for my coworkers and friends, Bradley and Matt. So I'm going to hang up the phone calls. Yeah, thank you guys, because I don't want to keep them for that much longer. So gonna read some IMs and get out of here. Linus VP65, thank you, Bradley, for heart attack joke. JR and Billy says the entire speech is a turducken. That's the high concept.
It was Turdirkin.
Yeah.
Or Duck Deerkin.
No.
A turduckison.
Duck Deerter.
Yes, it's Duck Deerter, obviously. Carve that on his gravestone, which will need to be crafted in the next 5 days.
At least till Cyber Monday.
Dave from Jamaica says, so human heaven is duck hell.
I got it's just the first day. Like all the people who don't.
Is that his first episode?
No. He's saying that's the first day in heaven. Which I don't know how long that'll be for him. But I like to be a person who doesn't duck hunt at all, and being like, damn, heaven is not what I expected. I'm in waders up to my waist in
like
duck
5
blood.
beagles.
Yeah.
5 scent dogs.
Why do I have to wear camo in
I gotta
heaven?
swing the Benelli on this mallard now.
Catfish James, this Huckabee monologue seems like a long setup for a Butcher Box ad. Yeah. Penn Sly Tucky says Huckabee, all set, no punchline. This is clearly next level comedy. I'm in awe.
What's funny about that is, like, as they point out on Not Even a Show, like they have this whole like band intro, like it's like Leno, where he comes up and he's like, "Hey everybody," and then that is what he hits the audience.
Yeah,
with.
I know. It's like he's never seen a late night monologue in his life. Sam Y. Seder says, I disagree with Matt a little bit. I don't think the caller was deducing it all to religion, but I think religion definitely plays a role. Many Christians in the United States literally believe homosexuality is a sin because the Bible says so. I agree with Hitchens that religion does poison everything. Belief without evidence.
I mean, that's where Hitchens loses me, because here's the thing that religion is, and I agree that it is tactically useful for power structures to enforce, their control over populations. But that is how it should be understood, and not as like, oh, those power structures are just following the Bible.
Yeah. Well, the Bible's the books don't come first. They are like.
They are interpreted.
They are interpreted by the power structures of the time as well when they were written. So they reproduce those, and then those things get used to be reactionary in the same way the Bible was used to justify slavery.
And I'm sorry, like it's not something. It's something to be extremely, I think, clear about, because it is used to obscure. I mean, why was Jordan Peterson in Turkey like 8 years ago talking with Orban? It was, if you look at the newspapers there, to talk about how Muslims are incompatible with democracy.
Mm-hmm. Duke Journo says, my friend did pest control at the Trinity Broadcast Building. Apparently it was filled with Israeli flags even a few years ago. Interesting.
Would like to see that be confronted a little bit by actual Jewish Zionists, and like how much like our insane righteous gemstones ass Christian Zionists are driving there, because to me it's like not a real surprise when you look at what part of America, particularly the racist Christian part, is really supportive of Israel, that all of a sudden the West Bank looks like Jim Crow.
Mike from Queen says, Matt, forget looking at history. People can't even be bothered to read the Quran. It doesn't say half the stuff people attribute to it in the Old Testament actually advocates for genocide in comparison.
Or as Bibi Netanyahu reminds us.
Yes, Amalek. 400 blowing me. Is any of the MR crew going to see Napoleon this weekend? No.
I want to, but I don't see a lot of movies, honestly.
The only thing that I appreciated about the Napoleon rollout is that Ridley Scott was like, yeah, he said something about Egypt, so I figured it would just be easy for us to make a scene of him blowing up the pyramids, just to make a point.
Right, and that's part of why I don't want to see it. I do like the historical epic stuff, but Ridley Scott has a very tenuous relationship with the truth when it gets in the way of a spectacle.
I was going to say, I also think it's almost like he's like, I have such contempt for the viewers of these movies, and I'm like, you're an idiot. You won't fact check this.
Yeah. I mean, right. Angela from Alberta, I feel like I have to rewrite the previous I am the chat. Okay. I missed your previous one. 2 more. Zane, all 3 religions of Abraham are represented in the Israel-Palestine conflict, pointing to an old book to justify their violence. And the final I am of the week. Star Fox. I broke the IMs. I'm so sorry. Somebody copied my message into the username field. Ugh, it's okay, Star Fox. I ruined Hump Day for everyone. Well, even though I'm the worst, can the server please get a birthday shofar for Bumbler and a good luck shofar in June? And for June and Allie. Thank you. Love you all. Belated congrats, Emma. Left is best. Happy casual Thursday ever. Whoever celebrates tomorrow. Left is very sorry, everyone. Star Fox, I didn't know it was you. You get a complete pass. Always get Star Fox gets a pass. Appreciate you all. There you go. Thank you to Matt. All right, guys. Enjoy your Thanksgiving political conversations. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We will be back with some great interviews pre-recorded on Friday. And yeah, that's it. See you Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive